We made a lot of choices this season. Not all of them were winners, but hopefully by the end of this, we'll see where we land. Greetings and salutations. Today we're going to be talking about House of Dragon Season 2, which is led by Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin. Obvious spoilers if you care, if you don't, we like that here. I have not read the books, I'm not aware what happens in the books, I am not a lady of lore. There's no extreme play-by-play, I'm simply just going to talk about things that I find interesting in the episode, and I tend to yap a lot. So now that we got that business settled, and in case it wasn't blatantly obvious from the trailers, the king is dead, the successor and heirs are at war, and peace be damned. Since sharing is a foreign concept to the Targaryens, unless it's family members, we're just gonna go on dragons a-blazing. We're at war, except, well, that's not entirely true. More like we're setting up for a war that we know is going to happen, but we keep playing mean-spirited pranks on each other, and a couple of them just went a little too far. So far, some people have done some unforgivable things. Blood and Cheese was like a light spread of the Red Wedding, which is not as gruesome, not nearly as many deaths. It's still horrible, still wild to see on television. Both are equally bad as porno titles. There's more problems beyond the fact that this is a season of filler. There's certain inconsistencies to the concepts that was drawn in House of Dragon Season 1, or even in Game of Thrones. We somehow overcorrected the problems that we had in Season 1, which was the time skips. I'm appreciative towards that, but even with the time skips, we still had evenly paced episodes with dialogue that moved things along. You could argue that this season is setting up for more to come, but that setup was already done within the first 4 episodes. If anything, after that point, we would have moved on to stuff that we thought we were going to see, which would have been the war stuff. You get this huge sequence between Rhae, Aegon, Aemond with their dragons, and it's probably the only time throughout the season that you wait with bated breath on how things are going to turn out in the next episode. Rhae and Meleys are left for dead after a grueling battle with Vhagar. Aegon is potentially dead or alive after a fight with his own brother, and at the end of it, Cole finally gets a slice of humble pie, while both sides have to reel with the fact that they have to account for the wins and losses that they have and decide, was it all worth it? Surely the rest of the season is going to be equally as awesome as this, right? Well, anyway, back to Harrenhal. Yeah, you have the rest of the season to look forward to, and it's nothing but rich people throwing temper tantrums and the commoners having to suffer for it. You have Rhaenyra's council circling around the same points we made at the beginning of the season. I want to fly off to war and make moves like a dude. I hear you, but you will die, and there will go your claim. But you do you, queen. You know what? I want to find other Targaryen heirs. Battle of the Bastards, the prequels, 129 AC colored. So we want to invite more enemies to the claim. Okay, so we need people. How are we gonna get it? I don't know, but you're a woman, and I kind of resent that. Rhaenyra also gets hot and steamy with Mysaria before she's rudely interrupted by one of the White Cloaks. I don't know if it's just me, but I didn't pick up on the romance between the two. That and the fact that they were in the middle of talking about Mysaria's abuse with her father. So it didn't really feel like the right time. For me personally, I got more of the sense of the sisterhood vibe. You know, you finally have one person that has genuine support and love for Rhaenyra in that way of she is a queen. And Rhaenyra is getting more done with her than anyone else in the council. Then I'm waiting several episodes for something else to happen or for you to at least expand on the love affair. From my recollection, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, I read that this scene was improvised. It wasn't even included in the script, and nor was it something that happened in the books. I have no problem with any gay love or romance or anything depicted on screen that shows a love affair or romance. Whatever kinds of individuals are tied in a romance, it should still flow with the next episodes to follow, because I would be looking at Daemon just as goofy if he was over in this dream sequence making out with Helena. When I'm looking through the rest of the episodes is, oh, well, business as usual. And just to make another point as to why this scene doesn't work for me is because I can see the relationship between Alicent and Rhaenyra being a romance more than this situation here. Grant, there can be a sliver of jealousy that Rhaenyra can flaunt about her choices and decisions in life, whereas Alicent can't. But at the same time, I can see that there's different ways to look at that relationship. On the green side, everyone is scrapping for power, because you can't fight a war if no one wants to throw the first stone, so we'll just start bickering with each other, and eventually we'll get there. We have nothing better to do with our time than make things easy for our enemy, which is plotting against one another, and then benching our best players. Listen, if I can't cuss out anyone on the green side, or at least show them my disgust for the way they're crashing out, I can always at least rely on Otto Hightower to put them in their place.
Insolent pup.
Unexpectedly, I begin to like Otto Hightower more this season, because you can at least see more where his morality lies within the situation. He's just a guy that just wants the good for the realm, and at the end of the day, the best things that his grandsons can do for him is stay out the way. let the high tower steer. And in this squabble for power, we also see what it's like for the commoners, or at least the small folk who are in the kingdom, and how the kingdom's decisions affect the lives of the people they serve. At this point, food is scarce and people are overworked by the war effort, and Rhaenyra is not a tangible source of their rage, so who else would they have to blame than the people that claim they have the power to everything. I actually like the contrast of the sway of the people within King's Landing. One minute we're mourning the death of Helena's son, and the commoners are rallying beside Helena to show support and cursing Rhaenyra's name. The next, we're praising her, and it highlights what the showrunners wanted to point out this entire time, was that small folk do matter. Hugh and Corley's bastards are just another group of characters that I end up liking in the show. I will say, every moment I expect to see an interaction between Corley's and his sons end in a big ol' hug. It's just another thing I'm probably gonna have to wait 2 seasons to actually see. Ulf can choke though, but he somehow has the best looking dragon out of everybody. Lucky bastard. Literally. He's not a king, but he's the king of all the problems. Daemon's ego and his extended timeout session in Luigi's mansion, which I'm aware that after Daemon takes off to Harrenhal, nothing is written about him in Fire and Blood, yada yada yada. Book lore. We're not talking about that. This is not executed well in the show. Why? Because if a character is initially off screen doing nothing, why do we want to watch 8 episodes of this character doing nothing on screen? Don't get me wrong, I love the actor to bits and pieces. Why are we benching him for an entire season and making his character worse? For 5 to 6 episodes, Daemon is just hanging around Harrenhal practicing his mewing streak because he can't gather a war effort to save his life. Which we couldn't have just 1 episode of the hallucinations that Daemon is having and then give us half an episode where he finally comes to an understanding of, hey, Rhaenyra is going to be queen, I give her my full love and support in every means necessary. And all this man needed was 5 to 6 episodes to play around with his brother's corpse, working his mommy issues, and getting a got sizzle reel for good measure. I never thought Alice was a real person. She was never really acknowledged by anybody else that was in the room with her, or she was only caught with Daemon and her. Quite honestly, I thought they were going to end up developing some sort of intimacy there, because that would have been another accomplishment for the Targaryen books. I can grant the grace that there's only so much you can do in 8 episodes without interrupting the flow of the season, but at the same time, you have an hour length worth of these episodes and you can compensate for that. That and somehow the travel to landmark is somehow shorter than in Game of Thrones. Dragonstone and King's Landing makes sense because they're neighboring landmarks. Anywhere else, how are we traveling that fast? Do we have prime shipping? Priority dragon riding? And we somehow are able to sneak back and forth between castle grounds. This just seems like an overall security issue going on here. I am by no means eager for anyone to die, except for Cole. But don't lead me on to the point where I'm asking, when is this going to happen? However, it's not all bad and pointless. There's certain things that I enjoyed within the season and things that I wasn't expecting to enjoy. I like to think I have a pretty good ear for music, and the scores throughout this entire show have been chef's kiss. One of my favorite aspects to compliment on is when Alicent and Helena are leaving the Sept, and while they're leaving the Sept, we get this whole shot of the entire Sept and the buildings around it, and it plays the familiar score from Game of Thrones, which will eventually remind us of what we will come to lose. There's finally more explanation to the relationship between dragons and their riders, which is just an awesome concept overall when you're adding to the world building, and it enriches the plot. However, I like to imagine the internal dialogue a dragon has before they choose their initial rider. The scene where we're lining up all the Dollar Store Targaryens in the pit is like a family cookout and reminds me of the scene from The Dark Knight.
Our operation is small, but there's a lot of potential for aggressive expansion. So which of you fine gentlemen would like to join our team? Oh, there's only 1 spot open right now, so we're gonna have tryouts. Make it fast.
Jace and Daemon's daughter start to make more of an appearance this season, and I guess Jace, after he made a visit to the north, he finally learned how to use botanical gels. But unfortunately, towards the end of the season, the man just started to annoy me, and not because his points were wrong. More on the side of, how are you going to get mad at your own mom for an idea that you gave her? You complain about your mom never listening to you, and then when she does, you're gonna get pissy the entire time because all of a sudden we remember, oh yeah, we're bastards down here. Rhaena is hunting for her own dragon, which she just left the kids, no question. Exciting, but also concerning. I do like the coined phrase of an army of bastards, very reminiscent of the Battle of the Bastards, which was also very delicious to watch. I also love how Vhagar is single-handedly trying to get us to season 3. Aemon flies out to meet this other dragon rider and is instantly met by Rhaenyra and her squad of new dragons, and he's like, oh, whoa, I didn't ask for all that. This is season 3 stuff. This ain't this time.
Strong enough to have it all.
Too weak to take it!
Helena has surprisingly become one of those characters I found myself liking each time I saw her on screen. Helena faces a lot of hardships this season, and she realizes what games royals end up having to play in a war-torn realm, like hard launching the beheading of your son for favor among the small folk, or running away from crazed commoners. As a person who's part of the game and sees the whole of events that are out on the board, she can't fully discern what's going on and what's happening, as if it's some sort of compulsion, which is very interesting to see unfold throughout the season. She's in every way a dreamer Viserys wanted to be or was. She sees the wheel turning, but she still has to follow through with the part she needs to play, while also wanting no part in the games to follow. And that's essentially Rhaenyra's and Alicent's plight as well. They don't want the war to happen and will find any means outside of that to change the tides, but it's all underneath the same condition of, but I want the throne. I guess that's why it's so frustrating to see this tug of war on screen. Like, we've tried all these methods to maintain peace while bolstering strength, and it just all seems redundant to begin with. Rhae's episode where it was co-signing the war in Rhaenyra's stead was probably one of the best episodes of the season. She was another character that I liked a lot because she served as a strong, compassionate role within Rhaenyra's council to steer the conversations from going in those circles that I was talking about earlier. She was the only person that I actually believed understood Rhaenyra's purpose for wanting peace and resolution and wanting to maintain her own grief, even when she needed to remain calculated in her war effort. After all, you don't want to forget the reasons why you go to war, especially when it comes down to ending it. To start the season, Rhaenyra deals with grief. She wants Aemon's head to pay for the death of Luke. Now we see everyone on the green side measuring up their strength, another death ensues, and not only are we fighting for the crown now, but we have accidentally started something that we cannot possibly hope to end in a peaceful manner. Shot for shot, when the whole point of the season started with a son for a son. Which, funny enough, the same theme finds its way back at the end of episode 8, where Alicent strikes a deal with Rhaenyra, which we all know is going to go horribly wrong. Everything I said about her in my trailer review is pretty much accurate to date. She has never had a choice in her life from a very young age, and even now. She is at best somebody that is a classic case of being manipulated and coached, and then repeating those same toxic behaviors to her own children, and now she sits and ponders about the fact if she's ever been more than a queen to her own children, while bearing the consequences of her own decisions. Mommy issues run deep in this family, I suppose. I do like the interaction between Gawain and Alicent, how they're talking about her other son that's off screen. Again, off screen. We haven't seen him yet, but he's nice. As much as I can understand Alicent and the reason why she does things, there is nothing as unforgivable than her swapping spit with this toxic waste can. Every moment that this character breathes air and almost gets killed and doesn't pains my soul. Which is good because you're supposed to dislike this character with every fiber of your being. He is wildly unreasonable. His morals swing as far as his parts do. And on top of that, he's just annoying to be around. And his reasons for being so is at best hypocritical. At least I can see why Aemon is the person he is today. You know, he lost an eye, is constantly getting clowned on, but he gained a dragon, so I feel like that's kind of squared away at this point. But Cole's whole reasoning is, yeah, my ex was a bench of a princess who used me only for her own desires, so I plucked myself a nice little queen who uses me for her own. He sends twin brother guard to kill Rhaenyra to alleviate his own guilt of the situation with Helena, and then ends up killing both his guard and Rhaenyra's guard because, you know, bros gotta go out together. And while this happens, Cole becomes Han, and his ego is even more juiced than we already thought it was going to be. Also, how this character speaks and just his overall actions rub me the wrong way. Now, yes, his character is obviously supposed to be spurned by Rhaenyra. How his first transgression led him to sink further in this path of hypocrisy and also be deeply unwounded in the political games that he's involved in. I just hope his death is more satisfying than the people of his ilk, because I cannot stand any more disappointment than him being alive. Overall, the season feels like a great appetizer with a reliable entree to follow through that we've always gotten, but I guess the chef was having a little bit of an off day. First 4 episodes were great and were essentially what we needed to get us through to season 3. War is coming the same way winter is, and we have to wait an entire season before we even get to see it. All of the roads that we've paved, connected, and even left off in season 2 left me okay with waiting for season 3. The pacing of the episodes felt long-winded and uncoordinated. The story does have interesting routes in it, but it fails at any build-up that leaves a bite of intrigue. The Blacks were down for a while, but we're moving on up with some choices that lay ahead. The Simon spy guy that went over to Daemon on Harrenhal is probably going to be a spy for the Greens. It's not like they need any more more help as it is. Larys and Aegon are interesting in a way where it's cool to see two sick boys stick together. I felt a lot of heart in the relationship progression between those two, but who's to say that it's not an active personal gain? Otto Hightower is possibly imprisoned by the Tyrells. That or it's somewhat unexpected, but you wouldn't quite put it past them. Why there was no letter on Otto's disappearance at all during this entire season? No clue. But those are my thoughts on season 2. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Comment down below along with your theories and queries, and let me know some things you'd like to see more from me. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more quirky, be sure to subscribe. Links down below to new endeavors because fun stuff happens there sometimes. But anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.